AI is likely going to far outperform doctors in the next year. In the next 5 years, it won't be even comparable.
Today, I'm talking to Max Marchione, the founder and CEO of Superpower.
Primitive. Health is not dying. Health is enhancing ourselves.
With the rise of peptides, longevity, and now direct-to-consumer pharma, it feels like healthcare has become more sexy than at least I can ever remember.
I don't think doctors are good at reasoning. Clinically relevant means I have not thought for myself, and I listen to a textbook created by pharma.
Paint the bull case for us here.
Peptides are going to be one of the most impactful things for human health of the past 50 years. I think probably 50+% of the population 10 years from now will be taking some sort of daily enhancement therapeutic. The modality of that therapeutic.
Today, I'm talking to Max Marchione, the founder and CEO of Superpower. Welcome to Bio.
Michael, excited to be here and looking forward to chatting.
Let's dig right in. So, with the rise of peptides, longevity, and now direct-to-consumer pharma, it feels like healthcare has become more sexy than at least I can ever remember. So, can you help us dig like one layer deeper and what's really happening behind these trends?
I think there are very few themes that matter for humanity, and very few themes that have always mattered and will continue to. And I think health is one of them. Health is one of these things that pre-AI matters, post-AI matters. It's very Darwinistically primitive. Health is not dying. Health is enhancing ourselves. And we have this like very timeless theme intersecting with several technological kind of breakthroughs, intersecting with some cultural moments. Right on the technology side, the cost of diagnostics are approaching zero. Omic sequencing, genomic sequencing has dropped faster than Moore's law since 2000 when we first sequenced the human genome. Data is becoming ubiquitous. We have wearables and all sorts of data sources. And then therapeutics are being used for things other than sickness, which massively expands the TAM of therapeutics and allows people to achieve things that previously were really hard without that therapeutic. GLP-1s are the peptides being kind of the harbinger or hero products in that theme, but really them just being an indicator of where we're going. And then we combine this with what's happening in culture, where health is in vogue, where the whole looks maxing theme is in vogue, where health is social, where we have like the decline of alcohol and the increase of gym attendance and yoga. And we get the fervor we have today, which is health. Health is having a moment that is both cyclical and I think more importantly, structural and here to stay.
Is it technology here driving the culture, or is it the opposite, or is it hard to tell?
I think it's reflexive. So I think there's like a structural theme which is up and to the right, right? And that is because of technological breakthroughs and this fundamental need for humans to continue living and improve the quality of our lives. And then I think there are like cyclical ups and downs, and the cyclical ups and downs are where culture intersects with technology, right? Peptides was on the down 2 years ago. Then 6 months ago, it was on the up. Right now, it's probably on the down or neutral, and then it'll be on the up again in 3 months. So it's kind of like structurals up and to the right, and then cyclical has this up and down a lot along that curve, and that's culture.
Okay, so there's this cultural moment, there is this technological moment, and yet healthcare is still broken, at least that's your thesis. So give us that angle, and where does Superpower sit within all that?
Well, if I look at healthcare, a lot of it is quality and cost. If I look at the constraint on the cost side, there are two primary drivers of cost in the US to simplify. One is doctors, right? The human cost, physician cost is a lot. And it's very hard to solve that. It's supply constrained. So it's hard to solve that by just hiring and training more doctors. One could argue that AI does solve that. And AI has a marginal cost closer to zero rather than $300 an hour. And then on the other side of like the cost challenge, we have all the intermediaries that exist in the US, all the perverse incentives, the insurers who make more money the higher their cost structure, the hospitals incentivized to perform surgeries, the PBMs and pharma companies looking to mark things up as much as possible. But if we actually look at the physics cost, like the physics cost of a drug isn't much, the physics cost of a diagnostic isn't much. So I think on the cost side, there's also the opportunity to bring the actual cost structure of healthcare closer to the physics cost by removing intermediaries. So there's like still cost problems in US healthcare. And then there are quality problems. And one might argue that a quality problem is, again, constrained by the use of the human doctor to perform compute, right? Like health is maybe an informatics problem. We have the database of the person and of medicine, and we have to compute between the two. And doctors are not fantastic at that. AI is likely going to far outperform doctors in the next year at that, arguably already is. In the next 5 years, it won't be even comparable. And then on the quality side, we need more biotech, right? Like computer knowing what is going on is one thing, inference is one thing, but actually having the tools at our disposal to modify biology or modify human life is another thing. And we're starting to get there, but I think bio is still early, and it's going to be a really important trend of the next decade.
I hear some Elon there in what's the fundamental constraints of physics and how can we redesign everything based on that. And I like this. I guess to be the devil's advocate though, you're not the first company that is trying to fix a lot of these structural challenges. So is it about the why now that's different or what's different here?
I think there are like some external forces which make it easier to do now, which is LLMs are a thing, so they make it easier to replace the human. Health is cultural, which essentially lowers customer acquisition and earns you the right to get to the next milestone. There are all sorts of APIs that now make it easier to start a health company. The cost of diagnostics has come down to zero. And then part of it is just, can you execute? Right? Like, I don't think anyone has actually executed well per se. If we executed the same as we are executing today 5 years ago, we would still likely be in a good position, not as good of a position because there are the external forces. But I think the primary variable is still execution and team. And then the secondary variable is kind of market and timing.
And you've been obviously executing really well when we look at the speed with which you have been building Superpower. And I think the cultural relevance, at least in the tech circles that Superpower has right now. So well done on that. And you have a very active ex persona. I think you're very good at getting the message out there. You're also working with some very famous influencers right now. And I guess that begs the question, how much, in your opinion, is your execution down to marketing side of things versus the product itself?
I think ironically, people think we're good at marketing. I don't think we're that good at marketing. I actually think it's probably what we're weakest at. The product today is incredible. There are other companies who look like us in the space because their marketing is similar. There is no company that even gets remotely close to the product we have built. Right? We have, I'm not exaggerating, hundreds of members, thousands of members who have said we changed their life, hundreds who have said we saved their life. And I get these stories every single week. And a big part of that is probably there are probably two big parts of what has made that possible. One is the intelligence layer, so the AI, inference, the ability of the AI to connect the dots between all sorts of different data sources, the ability for it to structure that data and check in and hold someone's hand is just incredible. Like, I have spent hundreds of thousands on concierge doctors, and I thought I knew most of what there was to know about my own biology, and the AI is discovering new things. I thought we'd get there eventually when we had more scale and more capital and more compute and bigger models and more data, but we're already kind of there, and it's hard to communicate that. It's more one of those things that you get it when you see it. And then I think the other reason we've executed well at the little product is brought a lot into one place in a very seamless way, which is non-trivial to do, both of those things, aggregating a lot and then doing that seamlessly. Look, I think I think the average execution is like a 2 out of 10. I think typically best in world is like 6 or 7 out of 10. And I love this framing because it means that if you execute the best in the world, you're 6 or 7 out of 10. And the implication is there's like an opportunity to execute so much better, right? So do I think we're executing best in the category? Yes. Do I think we're executing exceptionally well? Certainly not. Far from it.
What would make you execute 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10?
I think that most of execution is like culture and is like strategy, culture, and talent. Right? Strategy is like, are we focused on the right things? And are we relentlessly cutting things, saying no to more and more and more to focus on the most important? I think we do an okay job of that today. I don't think we do a great job of it. The second thing is culture. I think we have a a strong culture, a stronger culture than 95% of companies I've come across. I don't think we've got XAI level culture yet. And I think we need to get there. So culture is the second thing. And then the third thing is talent, right? Like most of what we do is a function of who's on the team. What does the team create? And we're just constantly upgrading our talent. Like I spend most of my time recruiting, chatting with potential candidates, convincing people to join, headhunting, seeking the best people in the world. And we've done a really good job of that. But again, like we can just always do better.
That's fair. And so you said you're building the Tesla of healthcare. So is the UX, the UI side of things really like the key ingredient here? You also just mentioned right now that you're aggregating and packaging a lot of things really well that have previously existed maybe standalone. So is that kind of like, yeah, the key muscle that you're building here?
No, I think there are probably five kind of muscles that we need to simultaneously be good at. Number one is infrastructure, owning pharmacies, labs, manufacturing, which we're doing more of the time, only a small amount of today. Number two is kind of AI research. Does our AI outperform any other AI on like very stringent health evals, right? Is it detecting things? Is it connecting dots in really accurate and truth-seeking ways? Number three is, do we do a good job of the consumer interface? And consumer interface is where we talk about the UI, the experience. What does that look like? What does it feel like? I think there are three consumer interfaces to the future of health. There's digital. We do a good job of that today. There's at home. We do a mediocre job of that today. And then there's physical. There's clinics or centers for diagnostics and therapeutics you cannot get at home. And we don't do that yet, but we will in the future. So there's infrastructure, there's AI, there's consumer interface, then there's diagnostic and therapeutic IP. We've made our first kind of meaningful acquisition of therapeutic IP, and we'll go live with that next year. We haven't acquired diagnostic IP yet, but we're quite deep exploring a couple of opportunities. And there's the fifth thing, which is the consumer application. The consumer application is like what people know us for, right? The kind of hero consumer application we have today is a blood test into ecosystem. And then the second consumer application we're launching late this year or early next is peptides. And they're kind of the five things: infra, AI lab, consumer interface, diagnostic and therapeutic IP, and then consumer application.
Okay, so my updated mental model is that your initial hero product was blood testing. So you were partnering with Quest and you were putting this amazing UX UI on top of it. That was your wedge, but now you're basically saying you're going after the full healthcare stack underneath all of that.
Diagnostics commodity, right? And we want to commoditize commodities. To commoditize a commodity means providing it at a low cost in a seamless way. And then the slightly less commoditized thing is the intelligence on top. We never just did blood testing. We probably should have, but we launched out of the gates reasonably feature complete. Like we had dozens of different diagnostics. We had prescribing capabilities. We had a medical care team. And I think we're known for blood testing because it's how we compete at the level of customer acquisition. But like post-acquisition, it's always been just the tip of the iceberg.
Fair enough. And how do you think about your competition in this space? I mean, obviously there are players like Function Health, then they have raised like 10x the amount of money, I think, still that you have, although you have raised quite a bit. So, like, how do you stay ahead of all of this, or what makes you win?
I don't think anyone's been able to do what we've done, even remotely close. There are people that have been able to wrap a blood test and sell it as a D2C product experience. Great. Go do that. Be a supplement company called a blood test, right? Um, I haven't seen anyone build an AI that performs the way ours does. I haven't seen anyone aggregate all these things into one place. I haven't seen anyone have the kind of tooling to engage someone and put them on a health journey. I haven't seen anyone. Hims has made bets around vertical integration. I haven't seen anyone make bets around like acquiring bio IP. So yeah, I just haven't seen people doing what we're doing yet. I've seen a blood test sold as a CPG product, but that's most of what I've seen.
Can you tell us a bit more about the bio IP that you have acquired?
It's related to peptides. Is most of what I'll say.
Okay, now I'm getting excited. I guess we have to stay tuned for that. Okay, let's talk about the AI for a minute because you have mentioned it a few times now. So you said the AI is discovering new things or helping your users or patients or whatever you call them discover new things. So can you walk us through maybe like a good case study of what it has discovered so far?
Earlier today, I was catching up with someone who was like to me, "Your AI saved my friend's life. They were noticing a bunch of symptoms, and they spoke to it and it said you should go to the ER, and they went to the ER and they were having a stroke, and that was striking. The only reason I wear my Aura Ring now is because I want our AI to have the data. And it messaged me the other night. We give it access to email and SMS, and it messaged me the other night and it said to me, "We see when your respiratory rate is higher, you sleep worse at night. And when it's lower, you sleep better. This could be allergies. Do you want an allergy panel?" And I said yes, and I've got a nurse coming to my home next week to draw my blood to assess for allergies. So that was kind of cool how it was able to structure that data over a long period of time and then observe the correlation autonomously. There are dozens of things like this every day. We have many, many member stories of people saying, "I've been grappling with this thing for a long time. I've been feeling fatigued." And the AI connected this kind of snip or thing in my genome to this in my microbiome to this in my blood, and I took XYZ action, and now I feel alive again. So we get those stories more often than I would expect. I thought we'd do that eventually, but I thought that would take us quite a lot longer than what it has taken us, which is like partially a testament to our team, but also partially a testament to the foundational models, right? These like large models, open source and closed source ones, are pretty impressive.
So, I mean, that sounds pretty awesome. So how does this work? So it ingests your health data from multiple sources that you can connect, and then it just looks for correlations or patterns without having to be prompted specifically what to look for? Or can you walk us a little bit through how this works?
Yeah, we'll aggregate all of the different data we can on someone. So you can connect your wearables, you can pull in your past medical records, you can upload any past lab and it will automatically visualize. Then you can chat with the AI, you can ask it questions. It's pretty good at processing the data. You can ask it, "What do you see in my sleep data? What should I look out for? How does my genome relate to my gut microbiome?" You can ask it questions, but then it will also proactively text you and email you. Text is in beta, so today for most people, it's email them, it'll send them push notifications, and then it'll put that in the app as well. And that's where we don't tell it what to do. We don't tell it when to message someone. It just makes up its own mind. And people love that because many of them learn new things about their health, and that often results in them taking actions that just change their lives and their health.
So this is really like the holy grail of this doctor in my pocket 24/7 kind of observing everything I do, how my body reacts, and helping me, I guess, on one hand, cure things or fix things, but also optimize things and improve beyond the baseline of what health is, right?
Yeah, yeah, 100%.
Cool. And so you said you're using existing foundational AI models, obviously. So how do you work with this? You fine-tune something on top of it, so
Yeah, we
it's
don't do like pre-training, right? I don't think anyone.
obviously.
I don't think any like look, there's three parts of an AI stack. There's compute, a low IRR, massively capital intensive, good place for sovereigns to park capital, a good place for SoftBank to park capital. Then there's kind of all the pre-training work, the like large model work, and OpenAI does a pretty good job of that. Anthropic does a pretty good job of that. Quen is doing well at the moment. Kimi is all the rage right now. So they're all the kind of foundational model pre-training companies, and then there's the application layer. It's like what makes a good application, and there's post-training, there's multi-agent orchestration, there's context and memory, there's the harness you build, there's the way you structure data and allow the AI to process data. There's like dozens and dozens and dozens of micro decisions that go into creating like a breakthrough application. I wish it was one thing I could just be like, it's just fine tuning. It's like, no, it's actually like literally 100 small decisions that add up to allow an application to be breakthrough in terms of how someone feels when using it, and then also its performance on evals.
That makes a lot of sense. So are you saying basically your mode here comes from having a large enough user base and a large enough number of iteration cycles, so you have optimized all of these little things, and nobody else can replicate that? Or does it come from having access to all this data that others cannot ingest? Or is it both, I
I think
guess?
in the short term, most moats are execution moats, right? And like the execution mode is where I've been spending the past 2 years with like a genius team optimizing this thing. And like, I think someone else could copy it. I think it's probably going to take them 2 years with a really smart team because it just takes reps to learn what to do. You need to iterate many times. In the long term, the moat is scale and data. Scale because of the ability to vertically integrate, and then data because of the ability to allow kind of our models to know things that others cannot.
I like to ask these questions because I always think about how is the space going to evolve and what are the incentives of everyone involved and what does it mean for everyone else. And one thing I can think of, so if I were Apple, they already have Apple Health. They're already trying to push you as much as they can to link all the devices and share all the data. I would probably try to eventually integrate like a very smart health assistant based on AI in there. Though Apple has been also sleeping on AI, so I don't know.
I
Maybe
don't
they
think
can make that
Apple's
happen.
core thing is application layer, right? And when like Apple's not going to write your prescriptions and order your tests and put a doctor in the loop to validate. Like they're not going to do that. So I think the probability that Apple is the one who does this is very low. OpenAI might try to do that. So I think if I were to like make a bet on a company to be the like health OS, it's probably OpenAI. OpenAI, us, maybe Aura. No one else is an obvious contender for me right now.
Aura are definitely trying. I've been using Aura for like 4+ years, and like the data is super helpful in the right context, but also it's kind of overwhelming. And I think they've been definitely struggling with how do they recommend actions on top of the data. And they have even integrated an AI assistant recently of sorts, but it's not that useful. It's kind of like what Google is doing in their products, like strapping Gemini on top and trying to push you to use it. But there is not a very clear link, I think, between that and outcomes, at least for now.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed.
Okay, and I guess what they're saying, so yes, in this space, it's not just about the data, it's about the layers on top of it. So it's about tapping into the physician's network and into the prescriptions and supplements you're selling. That's what improves your health. So companies that are only focused on the data layer are not gonna compete with that or even be interested in competing with that. This podcast is brought to you by Superhuman Fund. If you're building on the frontier of human enhancement, we want to hear from you. Link in bio. We're looking to back the first trillion-dollar company in humanity 2.0.
Yeah, I think the access to testing is a commodity. The access to a wearable is a commodity. The aggregation of all of that data is not a commodity. Like no one has been able to aggregate that. And then the ability to have intelligence that understands that is not a commodity, at least today.
Fair enough. And okay, so back to the AI. So you mentioned some cool case studies about where it spotted things you would not have spotted yourself, or it recommended things that were super impactful to your health. What about the opposite? Like false positives, that's obviously one of the big issues with AI in general. It either hallucinates or like wrongly recommends things that it shouldn't be recommending. So how do you deal with those? Or how do you, like, do you have a system in place to kind of verify that this doesn't happen?
Yeah, so we do a lot of eval work, like where we're constantly evaluating, is the AI accurate? Is it giving someone responses we deem as good responses? Obviously, nothing is classed as medical advice. Like we see it in a similar zone to ChatGPT or Claude, where it can provide information related to health based on questions you ask, but it can't tell you what a doctor would tell you, right? So we need to escalate to it. If you want a prescription, we're not going to say you should take a GLP-1. We're going to say this could be something to explore. Here's the comment. So I think most of it is just like eval work, right? Can we provably increase accuracy over time by performing evals?
So you said the AI is not the doctor for now. How do you see that changing over time? And
Yeah, AI
like at
will
which
become.
point in time do you see it?
It's the self-driving problem, right? It's like even if self-driving cars are provably safer, provably far safer, it takes some time for that to get adopted. I think we'll have the same thing with health AI. Where like by the end of the year, we'll have health AIs that are provably safer. It'll take 2 to 3 years for that to diffuse. But I suspect in the next 3 years, AI is going to be prescribing and performing most of the roles of a doctor.
Do you think there'll be a scenario where like specific AI models get licensed equivalent to how doctors get licensed to be allowed to prescribe things, or how
Yeah,
is
it's
it going to
not gonna
play
be. I
out?
doubt there's gonna be a general model that can prescribe. I think a specific AI is going to have to prove. It's like self-driving, right? It's like one company is allowed to do self-driving. Not anyone who says they can do self-driving can do self-driving. And I think we'll see a similar thing in AI. You need to prove that you have enough safety and quality to be able to perform a regulated function.
That makes sense. And self-driving is a really interesting parallel here, because to achieve every 10x jump, so from 99% to 99.9 9999999. I think it's as hard as to get the previous 9. So how they have been tackling it, basically nobody has a fully self-driving car right now that's licensed to drive anywhere on the roads. So it's always fenced to specific geography, or you used to have a driver physically in the car that can step in at any moment and start driving, or in Waymo's now we have a remote operator center that can physically step in. So you still have these guardrails and this escalation chain for human drivers. So I guess you're foreseeing a similar sort of hybrid situation with AI
100%.
doctors.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you is this something that's 3 years in the future? Or are you already like actively planning for this scenario and putting things in place to?
All we care about is, do we believe our AI is truth seeking? That's what we care about today. If we're not actively planning for the AI to replace the doctor, and the reason why is, if you want to have an AI that replaces the doctor today, what you need to do is copy how a doctor reasons. And we don't want to copy how a doctor reasons, because I don't think doctors are good at reasoning, right? Like medical reasoning, the way it exists today, we're set up for limited human brains, limited storage, limited compute, limited data, limited access to research. And AI is very different. So we're less concerned about, can our AI prescribe in the next year? We could go after that if we wanted. We're more concerned about, is our AI long-term truth-seeking? Because we believe if we create the long-term truth-seeking AI, it becomes the default tool, because it can heal people and know what's going on more effectively than any other system on the planet. Now, that will take time. It will take data. We'll constantly be evaluating it and its accuracy along the journey. And in the process of doing that, we will have data that shows safety relative to a doctor. Now, we won't necessarily go through the same chain of reasoning as a doctor. That might extend our timeline on having an AI that can prescribe by a year or two. That's fine. I don't care about whether an AI can prescribe next year, 2028. I care about whether we build a system that is capable of doing what no human doctor could do, which is like know what is going on with someone.
I like the AI to be maximally truth-seeking idea. I think it's easy to get behind. It brings to mind another tough question, I guess, which is, I think what stops truth-seeking behavior in the existing healthcare system is incentives, right? So, for example, doctors are sold to by pharma companies and have incentives to prescribe and push certain drugs, which might not be in the interest of the patient or in the interest of maximum truth seeking. In your case, obviously your intention is good, but you're also doing the full stack. You're doing the testing, you're doing the prescription, you're selling the drugs or the supplements now. So you have an incentive also to make money on the drugs you're selling. So how do you make sure that these incentives are correctly aligned over the long term and you remain truth seeking?
Yeah, two main things. One is that the most sensitive financial variable in our business by far is retention. By far. Um, if we can have 95% retention versus 70% retention, that is worth, like, I don't know the exact math, like a factor of 10 to the business. Like, it's massive, right? It's a very sensitive variable. And you only have retention if you're truth seeking, because people will discover if you're not truth seeking, and they will churn. They will stop trusting you. They will not tell their friends and family. They won't come back. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we have a self-funded employer business. We sell to essentially payers who own quality and cost. And that's quite truth-seeking, because they see their claims and cost of care and patient outcomes at the start of the year, and then at the end of the year with people who use Superpower or don't. And if we save costs at better outcomes, we grow. We have data, and more self-funded kind of groups and payers cover us. If we don't, we don't grow. So the fact that that's a big business model is I think one of the few places in US health where you can actually have the incentive to deliver quality at a low cost.
So let's double click on the word outcomes here. So you mentioned cost, which is an outcome for the employer. But when it comes to individual, like what is specifically the measurable outcome that you're looking for?
Yeah, the simplest thing is, does someone's biomarkers improve? Like, over 85% of our members improve their numbers between tests. That's the simplest thing. The second thing is, what do they report, right? I think biomarkers are great, but ideally that shows up in higher quality of life. So we want our we want to hear things like, you changed my life, I've got more energy post superpower versus pre superpower. They're the main things.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I guess there's probably a third one, which we should start actively measuring, which we don't, which is like, the number of serious adverse events prevented. I think that'd be a cool. The challenge with that is you're playing the counterfactual game. It's like the paradox of prevention is you don't know whether it works. Now I'm being slightly facetious because you do know whether it works because you can look at cohorts in a population. It's like of the people who use this versus of the people who don't. What's the prevalence of X disease in your population versus not? But then you have all the people who make the argument, oh, but you have a healthier population. So it's hard. Like there is that paradox of prevention, but I do think there's probably some data we could provide around like adverse events detected and intervened on early or kind of prevented. So I think that could be another thing for us to optimize for.
Fair enough. I'm gonna throw another curveball at you, not necessarily because I agreed with it, but I'm really curious how you address this. So there was this post by the skeptical cardiologist, I'm sure you have seen it, that basically said most of the abnormalities in biomarkers you flag are clinically relevant, and that you, quote, manufacture worry in healthy people. Uh, and I guess what I'm curious is how would you even parse that's true or not? Because you can end up with a happy customer
Yeah, I
if
think we
you
know
address
it's
their issue,
simple
or you
to
can
know
end
it's
up
not
with a
true.
happy customer if you manufacture the issue and then you address it. So how would you know which one it is?
I don't think you can come up with a happy customer that way. It's a very short-term optimization. Customers are pretty savvy. They're more savvy now than ever. You might build a business that works for a year or two, but it's a house of cards, right? And the cardiologist if I take what he says at face value, an idiot. Like we know that certain biomarkers are causal of diseases, right? Take apolipoprotein B. This is a biomarker that many cardiologists will not test. They just want to test total cholesterol. We know apolipoprotein B is causal of heart disease, right? If you have higher levels of this biomarker, your risk of heart disease materially goes up. And apolipoprotein B is a lipid that's attached to an LDL, to a VLDL, and to a lipoprotein A. And that therefore gives you a good overall measurement of your atherosclerotic burden. Now, if a doctor doesn't want to test that, that's on them. If they don't want to intervene until you're 50 and your numbers are through the roof and you've already got calcification, that's on them. The kind of stance I take is if heart disease is the number one killer in the US, and if I can reduce the causal factor once I measure it, and I can measure that reduction, and I can do that reliably, why wouldn't I do that? So yeah, I like are there some biomarkers? No, I also I think it depends on your time axis, right? I think typically when something is out of range, um, uh, one people often feel it. Like if vitamin D is low, this cardiologist might be like, it doesn't matter. I'm like, well, no, if you increase vitamin D, people will feel it in energy. Two is often something dysregulated today manifests as something very serious down the road. And what I hate is this idea of we don't know what caused this. Oh, autoimmunity came out of nowhere. Alzheimer's came out of nowhere. Cancer came out of nowhere. We don't have good predictive models for what causes those things yet. But I think the reason we don't is because no one has actually looked at a big enough sample of data over a long enough period of time to know how to predict those things from the data we have. Right. And it's like, how do you actually build those predictive models? It's you collect data over time. And then we no longer are saying, I don't know what caused it. So this idea of we don't know in healthcare is such a fallible human idea that for some reason we've come to completely accept. And I reject that premise completely. I think we need to get to a world where we know exactly what someone's risk is decades in advance so we can take early action.
I mean, I have to agree with you here, and I think the key phrase in what the cardiologist said is the clinically relevant, and these doctors, they are well intentioned, but they're trained to spot clinically relevant things, which means things that have to be treated by the medical system right now versus optimize you to feel better and prevent things down the line.
Yeah, clinically relevant means I have not thought for myself and I listen to a textbook created by pharma, and that determines how I think. Right? So this means. It means I haven't thought for myself, right? And I think that the more someone thinks for themselves, the more they don't use the more they don't think dogmatically and the more they think from kind of the first principles or a truth seeking and ask what's true. And we have very little of that in medicine. We have a lot of dogmatism. We have a lot of, oh, this is true because this is what I was taught. Not this is true because I reasoned to this as the actual fundamental truth.
We definitely do, and yeah, I have to say I have had the same experience with doctors looking at my blood test and saying like there is nothing actionable, and then yeah, just self-optimizing things like my vitamin D levels and my energy levels, which were low, but no doctor would ever care about it. And I
When I
did
was
actually
when I was
feel a
14,
lot better.
when I was 14, my liver enzymes were slightly above the normal range, right? So slightly out of range. Doctors, I saw multiple. They all said it's completely fine. You're just above the normal range. 5 years later, I learned that the normal range is a 97.5th percentile of the entire population. So my liver enzymes, my liver was worse than 97.5% of the entire population as a 14-year-old, and doctor said I was fine. That caused such a big cascade of problems. Not right away. When I was 14, no. When I was 15, yes. 16, yes. And to this day, yes. But all the doctors said it was fine. You know why? Because that's what their textbook taught them. It's just ridiculous. But anyway.
Yeah, you probably wanna be more aspirational than at the verse 97.5th percentile of
Totally, right?
14-year-olds.
Yeah, and like what they're taught is, oh, this isn't liver failure. He doesn't have to go to hospital right away. It's like, but I'm not trying to work out whether I need to go to hospital right now. I'm trying to work out whether, as a 14-year-old, my liver is fine being worse than 97.5% of the entire population, or whether that's a sign of something that I should further explore and address. And again, that's just not how the medical system is set up.
I guess we can thank Brian Johnson and others like that for pushing people to, yeah, to think different on those topics.
Yeah.
Can we double click on the peptide side of things? So you just teased that you're doing something in that space, that you may have acquired some IP. You have been also obviously bull posting a lot about peptides. It gets a lot of engagement. It really taps into casual zeitgeist. So what do you see as real in the space, and where do you see this evolving?
I think peptides are going to be one of the most impactful things for human health of the past 50 years. And there are going to be people who disagree with me. And I would argue that you're already wrong, because GLP-1s are peptides and they have been one of the most impactful things in human health of the past 50 years. So for all the people who are allergic to my statement, you're already wrong. And that's just getting started, right? We're going to have many other such peptide-based therapeutics. And I think it's a theme that's very hard to ignore. It'll be one of the first times that we see pharmacological interventions used to enhance human life and prevent things, rather than just treat a sickness as well. Right? GLP-1s were indicated for type 2 diabetes. They're now used for far more than that. And I think we're going to continue to see the breadth of their benefits emerge with more data.
So paint the bull case for us here, like 5 to 10 years from now. Where are we gonna be, and like what is the range of things that peptides may enable?
I think probably 50+% of the population 10 years from now will be taking some sort of daily enhancement therapeutic. The modality of that therapeutic is most likely a peptide, given how we're seeing that these small molecules or small, I guess, proteins that bind to receptors of the cell to cause the body to produce a certain effect are like quite safe and typically quite effective and quite targeted. So I think we'll see 50% of people 10 years from now doing that. I think weight is still going to be one of the biggest indications. Sleep might be a big indication. Muscle gain might be a big indication. Skin and hair might be a big indication. And then, or immunity, I suspect, is also going to be a big indication. So I think we'll have peptides for these like big categories, and many people will take them.
So obviously you're making a push into peptides with Superpower. You really believe in this. I think a lot of other brands, a lot of other health tech, telehealth providers are jumping on this train. How do you, yeah, like what do you think is the essential ingredient, or like the right strategy for whoever is gonna win this space and dominate?
I think peptides are going to come down to probably three things. One is who's vertically integrated. Like, I think there has to be some sort of supply chain advantage. Two is who is the strongest brand and kind of go to market. I think there are going to be many companies that sell peptides via performance marketing. There are going to be very few that are like seminal brands in the space. And then number three is who has the best IP. Can companies develop and commercialize new drugs? Can they acquire IP? Can they make the right bets? Can they file the right patents? So there's going to be like a bit of an IP game as well.
So you're saying the best combo is to have all three.
Yeah, vertically integrate for cost and quality, win on kind of brand and go to market, and then make the right bets around IP.
I suspect you're probably right, especially on the IP side of things. So I also invest across the entire human enhancement space, and I get so many peptide related pitches over the past few months. But yeah, like most of them, if they're pure distribution plays, I always ask like, what was the defensible thing here? What's gonna make you win against everybody else? And I think what you just replied is probably a pretty big chunk of the correct answer here.
Yeah, totally.
What peptides are you on right now?
I'm microdosing retatrutide, the kind of GLP-1/3 emerging. That's about it. Epitalon, for sleep occasionally. I'm about to try a kind of 30-day course of Pinealon for sleep. When I get sick, I'll often take Thymosin alpha-1, which I find results in me not getting sick or healing from a sickness quite fast. And then if I'm injured, I'll take BBC 157 and TB 500.
What does the microdosing of Retard do for you?
What does it do for me? So I will take around 1 milligram every 2 weeks. I think it's one of the best just overall quality of life drugs. And the reason why is that I don't have food noise. I don't have to use self-discipline around food. My mood is a little bit elevated. My insulin sensitivity is higher, so I respond to carbs better. It's easier to not put on weight. I'm more focused. I'm less distracted. And for me, that's fantastic. Like, I don't want to waste energy having to think about food.
Sounds like the ultimate nootropic drug.
Yeah. Yeah. It has, I think it has a lot of benefits. Yeah.
And so you mentioned a lot of other things. So like, how often do you cycle things, or like how many different things do you experiment with within a given month?
My experimentation isn't as structured as it should be, to be honest. A lot of it is taking things and seeing if I notice an effect. I think my interoception is quite good, and I think my pattern matching is quite good. So that model works of testing and noticing works somewhat well for me. I probably should be more structured with it, but there's kind of a time and energy cost to being more structured with it. So everything's a trade-off.
It's fair. Sounds like you're getting good results anyways.
I think so. I learn a lot quite quickly about my health.
Cool. Okay. I feel like we've covered a lot. You've painted for us the bull case for where health and D2C health specifically is gonna go over the next couple of years. What else would be your, I guess, call to action to end this on for anybody in the audience today?
Superpower is always hiring. So if you want to be part of a company trying to create a new health system that heals people and has a truth-seeking AI and does many of the things we spoke about, flick me a message or just email us. That's my main one. I guess my second is be curious. Like, don't accept dogma, create things, write about things, test things. I think we don't have nearly enough open-mindedness and innovation and creativity required to push health and humanity forward. And the more of that, the better.
So hopefully Superpower continues being the engine that injects creativity into health and pushes the whole space forward. I guess that's the image we can live on here.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. That has been great. Thanks for coming, Max.
All right. Thanks, Michael. This was fun.
By the way, if you're enjoying this, hit subscribe. We drop a new episode weekly, exploring how AI, biotech, and human enhancement are shaping the future. And if a friend would love this too, send it their way. It really helps us keep going.